Okay, so we're going to use for this card, it's pretty much all the stencils. So we're going to use this mini set of stencils. I'm going to use several of them for this card. I'm going to take them off their ring so I can just use them individually. And I will pull out the dot one and the two balloon ones. One balloon one. Oops. And I'm also going to pull out the one that has the balloon strings on it. So those three are the ones we'll use here. All right, let's get to it. I'm going to start by just going straight at the balloons. All right, let me pull my pieces of paper that I need to use for this. And pardon my Gryffindor temporary tattoo. My gym has an in-house competition and we are on Harry Potter themed teams. And I forgot that I just came back from doing that and it's still in my hand. So that is the way it's going to be today. Okay, I'm going to start by, I'll show you how this works real quick. There's on the back of your stencils, there is a, gosh, this is really bold. Yeah, thing that shows you how these work. So the first one is this one, and you're going to stencil two sets of them just the way they are on there. The second stencil you're going to do in two spots. So these do not line up exactly on here. I'm going to do one color with this, and then I'm going to move it and do the other color. It shows you that on the back of the stencil set, but it'll be more obvious once we get into it. Okay. So first one is this one. I as always, I'm going to use some foam tape to stick my, not foam tape, Post-it tape to stick my stencil down. So it's a round ton. And if you'll see, all right, so I have this wrong side. Now I'm confusing my own self about it. Yeah. This way, yes. Yeah, okay. Goodness gracious, Mitra. Okay. I like these when they kind of go off the edge. So I'm gonna do this and you can see when I go back into it, I'll oh, this is how I did it. Good grief. Okay, so you can see kind of where I'm at with this thing. Okay, so I did turn it so that these top, if you look at this, I'm going to stencil the yellow right now. That's the yellow ones there and the blue. And I turned the stencil at quite an angle when I did it. So that might not be super obvious to you, but you can see now what I'm doing. I'm doing it, turning it so that these top balloons cut off at the top. So you can see that right here. Okay, I'm going to tape that down. I might tape that so that just in case I'm gonna stencil, oh, actually, I am gonna stencil on there. Hang on, let me tape it so I'm not blocking any of the stencil. Sometimes we will. But in this case, I actually want to keep my stencil, all the shapes open right there. So I'm just gonna stick it down, hold both of those things while I do my stenciling. All right, first thing I'm gonna do is yellow. I'm using a bunch of our pastel ink pads, the little 1-inch cubes. They're great for stenciling because they're tiny. All right, after doing a whole bunch of stenciling in the past couple of months, I have settled on my favorite tools. These are mini, I think they call them mini version of their Tim Holtz from Ranger. So they're removable little sponges, so you can get a little pack of replacements, but I like them because they're about 3/4 of an inch, really good size for this. Also, Ranger has these little sticks with these microscopic little pieces of foam on them. They are great if you're doing something like small, like this little guy here. So between those two products, and they're both by Ranger, That's my go-to now for stencil. I just don't like the brush as much. And find these a lot easier to deal with and a lot better for blending. And they cover nice and fast. I just did what you shouldn't do. Which is be careful of that corner. Oh, Mitra, it's quite the professional. All right. How fast they go, they just cover so nicely. Nice and smooth blending. All right. And now I'm going to do the blue. Can't remember what blue I used, so we'll see how this goes. This is the same one. Try that. Okay. Not any magic in whatever colors I choose, and you can choose whatever colors you want because these balloons could be done in a million different ways. A little bit of blue. Make sure I'm not going to do the same thing. So I'm going to try not to stencil off of the bottom here. All right. First blue balloon. And then the second one. Yes. Okay. Gonna make it nice and solid. We'll do some more shading later on. For this, I really just kind of put it on there solid. And you could obviously go in and make one side of it darker if you were trying to do some shading. That's pretty easy. I'll just show you that on here. Okay, a little bit shaded, just so you can see that. Okay, so that's my first pass of stenciling. Oops, I'm going to take my foam tape, use it in a second. So there you have that. Let's see that compared to where the card is. Okay. Now these two again, you're gonna do them in 2 steps. One step will be these 2 green balloons right here, and you can, it's pretty easy just to line up. You can see where they're supposed to go. And then just line them up. Try to make sure you get them in the right place. And then I am gonna do this right here to stop myself from stenciling over onto that. And probably like right here, because I'm only going to stencil these 2 pieces right now. A little bit of lime greenish on the balloon. I do really like that. I just do like the way sponges stencil better than brushes, also because the brushes, I feel like I get the brush underneath the stencil more than I should. Probably because I'm bad at using the brushes. Maybe not anything particularly wrong with the brushes. It's probably my user problems more than the thing, but I do like sponges. For me, I like them better. To each his own, I suppose. All right, so there's the green balloons. Looking pretty excellent so far. And then same thing, you can see exactly where they go. The other 2 right there. Going to cover up my yellow so I don't stencil into that. And this is definitely a place where I might go over. So I'm going to put the other piece of tape right there. Okay, and I'm going to get some pink. More pink. I'm going to use other pink, I think. This might be slightly different than what I used before, but it doesn't really matter. Okay. Pink for these 2 balloons. Interesting thing, but too, about when you stencil the gosh, even though this is a really pale ink pad, and if you stamp with it, it's very pale. But because when you're stenciling, you're layering more color on it than you get when you just do a stamping, it does come out darker. So you'll want to probably use lighter ink pads than you think you want. So that's the other thing. This hybrid ink, gosh, even though this is a really pale ink pad, and if you stamp with it, it's very pale. But because when you're stenciling, you're layering more color on it than you get when you just do a stamping, it does come out darker. So you'll want to probably use lighter ink pads than you think you want. Because this is a very pale ink pad, but look how dark the balloons are going to come out. And they dry a little bit lighter too. So that's the other thing. This hybrid ink does tend to dry a teeny bit lighter when it goes on. So. All right, again, we'll take that off right now. So let's, I didn't line that up very well, did I? Watch me go back in and fix that. Here's a good lesson here. I'm going to shift it a little bit and get that little edge where I didn't particularly line this up well. So, thing about stamping or stenciling in particular, it's pretty forgiving because you can go back in and fix things. Try and get just that edge. We don't have a big white edge here. Here we go. I think that will look better. Better. Tiny bit there. But not prob. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now I got my balloons. Put that up so you can see it better. Okay. So the bulk of the stamping of that card, I will layer that. Oh, I'm going to do this first, actually. Okay, what I did with the balloon strings here, you could stencil them, and the stenciling is fine. Makes a pretty fat string, which sometimes I might want it that way, but for this, I think I want to just make them a little lighter. So I'm just going to use the stencil to draw my strings on. And I'll use different strings and place them different ways. But I'm just going to try to go with the angle that the balloon is at and just draw with a black pen. Just go along the edge of one side of them. And it's pretty easy to draw your balloon strings on. And you could, the stamp set has strings as well, but I just found it really easy to draw them. So thought I'd show that part of that anyway, so you could see that's an option. Do however it makes you happy. But for me, it made me happy to draw them. And I tried to, when these balloons were angled this way, I tried to angle the strings a little bit that way too. They're all going to crisscross over each other. That's perfectly fine. Easy peasy, yes. And then like even on these balloons, if you see these balloons in the back, the two green balloons are kind of in the back, and actually that yellow one is too. So I kind of just imagine that where the string would be hitting it and just let the string come out from behind the blue balloon. If that makes any sense. This is also a pretty upright balloon, so probably it's string. This is your balloon. You can pretend right there, the string would start about there. So I'm just going to do that. Make the string start about there. And just skip the blue balloon and just do the string from behind there. Yes, easy peasy. I I also, if you look at it, I also drew the little tie on the balloon. You can do that if you want to or not if you want to, but I'm just gonna do that by just drawing kind of a figure eight. My pen. Here you go. So all my balloons have strings now. And then most of that's going to get covered up by this. Okay, so I can layer this onto my black piece. I'm not gonna stick it on the card just yet because we are gonna stencil a little bit of a background on the card. You know that if you've been following my classes at all, I do tend to use our pattern paper a ton because I just like to have a little bit of texture on my cards, in my background layers. But the stencils are great because you can just do that to match whatever you're doing without having to scramble around and try and find a paper match. And it's easy and quick. So this is gonna be my card. This. I'm just gonna stencil. And because I'm covering most of it, I just need to stencil on the outside edge. I don't need to do the whole card. And I won't do the whole card. So I'm going to use that same blue that I used on the balloon. See that same blue and just drop my blue thing. All right. And just stencil these little dots just around the outside edge. This dot texture is great because they're very small, but it just adds a tiny bit of texture to what you're doing. So that's it. Fast. How's that look? Looks pretty darn good. I'm looking at my finished product. I might want to put a couple of dots right there on the out edge right there. So I might just use the outside edge, put them exactly where I want them. Good enough. Okay, so that's my base card using the dot stencil. I can now adhere this to that. Nice. Okay, the last thing I'm gonna do, and you can barely see it on here, but this happy birthday background there just has a little bit of dots on it, and they're multicolored. So I'll show you how I do that. This. All right. All right. Ink for this. Yes, this is how I'm gonna do this. I am gonna stick this thing down with some foam tape. Just to keep it from moving. Where's my other piece of tape? Oh. Somehow I left it. Okay. Another piece down. Okay, so the multicolor part of this, I am really gonna go light. And I'm just gonna go with the colors I used, which are these. Or I'm just gonna do a little bit. So here, I'm just gonna do a little bit. I'm not even re-inking my spongers. I'm gonna use what's left over from the actual stamping of the balloons, just in a couple of spots. Now, if you don't think you have enough ink on there, you can certainly add more ink, but I think for what I'm doing, this is fine. A little bit of pink, just random spots. I'll do a little bit of pink here. A little bit of green. Green up there. Just leaving a little bit of space for some blue. You can kind of see where there's no ink and just go in with blue. Oh, my blue is dark. I'll go really as light as I can with that, so it's not super contrasty. All right, and hopefully that covered that pretty well. So that's just a little bit of a background for my happy birthday, which I'm just going to stamp with a black ink pad. The least contrasty. Okay. So I'm just going to stamp this on the right side of this. There you have that. The last piece is just to layer these two together. My big tape gun today. Sometimes, usually when I do classes, I like the small one because it's not so bulky and in the way, but today I am going to put this on with some foam tape. As I enjoy an abundance of foam tape on my cards. So this was a fairly straightforward card from a card construction perspective. There we go. Just lay that wherever looks good to you. But it's going to go, it's a width of the card, so it'll go all the way from to either side. There's no border here, it goes right out to the edge. There you have it. Card number 1. Okay, well, this card is the first card took like 20 minutes, so I'm probably going to be behind on time. So I will try to go quickly, but also you probably need to know that you are going to need to finish this class because there'll be parts where you'll have to pause, partially because I couldn't have you do enough homework. It's so hard to hold down things that are die cut and stencil on them that I really needed us to do that on one piece of paper and then die cut it. So sorry about that, but there's a lot of content in this class. There's a lot of stuff going on in these cards. So, okay, this is the second card. What you need is the dot stencil, not that one, the stars stencil, stripes. Oh, you do need that one. The diagonal and the vertical stripes, and this confetti one, which is a lot, right? I know. Okay, and you'll need the stamps, the hat stamp and the candle stamp. Let's see how efficiently we can do this, huh? Okay. Let's get some, oh, and you'll need the happy birthday stamp again. All right, let's get the stamping done first. How about that? Gonna stamp first, oops, neutral with black ink. Let's try. It's a lot easier to like pace yourself too slowly when you're recording than when you're live and you can see that you're not going to finish on time. All right. So I'm going to stamp this times. You're cutting these out, so you want to make sure you have enough room between them to die cut. But you don't have to worry about them being even because you're going to stick them on the card later. So just give yourself a little margin for the die cutting. There you go with that. While I have the black ink pad out, goodness, I'm sorry about my coughing. I feel like I have had tuberculosis for months. I'm hoarse, but I really don't. I'm just not sick. It's weird. So I'm gonna stamp this onto my circle or oval. Go. Then I'm gonna switch to a pink ink pad. Now, what I'm gonna do with this, I hope, is I'm gonna stamp this with my pink ink pad. Just randomly over these little strips. I think I'll just, you could do that and put them together and do it that way if you want. Maybe I shall. Didn't do that the first time, but why not? So you're just gonna do them sort of randomly all over. As well. Not a very well stamped situation there. All right. There. It's off actually because it's gonna screw me up. You can remember you can do them upside down if you want. The idea is just to get a kind of even pattern all over them. And they're skinny, so there's not a whole ton of room to work with. It's kind of easier to deal with them one at a time, I think. Okay. That's one side. This is the other. This is not painstaking. You don't need to make it take a long time. Just, it's really, essentially like making a piece of background paper. Upside down one. And one more here. Like that. I think that's probably pretty good. I'll do a little bit in the corner down here. Okay, now. Stamping complete now from this card, I believe. Now we're just going to do some stenciling. Get rid of the black ink pad. See what we can do here. I'd love it if my computer would stop making noises. I'm going to stick this down a little bit, just on a part that isn't going to end up being stenciled. Just as a teeny little placeholder to keep them down by stencil. That's not teeny enough. Just do a little piece right here. Okay. Is that good enough? Yeah, it's good enough. Okay, I'm gonna use this stencil. Oh, I didn't tell you this one too. We do need this one for the hat and for the candle. Okay. And this is a light thing. We are not being particularly painstaking about it. We are just gonna lightly stencil in. You don't need the little top part of the hat because it's solid. I'm just gonna very lightly stencil color, same color. Just because you're doing it light, you'll still see the outline because you're putting less ink on it. Just like that, really light, not even re-inking very often. So it's a little bit of a tone on tony thing. Because it's a background thing, so I don't really want it to have a ton of contrast. It's pink on pink on pink. But just to add a little bit of interest to these hats. So these two pieces are done. We're just going to go through and make all the pieces and then we'll stick them. This green piece, just a little bit of confetti. And I just did it in a green. Did I do it in blue? I might have done it in blue, actually. I'm gonna do it in blue. Whatever I did last time, I'm doing it in blue this time. Just gonna stick this down. And then I'm just gonna go over it in a blue. These are the bigger ones of the Tim Holtz spongers. They're fairly significantly larger. But this is a one-shot little thing. It doesn't matter. I can do it faster if I use a bigger brush. So doesn't look like it's getting anything on it, but I think it is. Super fast. There you go. So it's just a little bit of confetti on the bottom. That piece. Okay. Yellow piece. Yellow piece just has a little bit of orange striping on it. So now doing the striped stencils, it's a teeny bit tricky because these little stripes are very movable. So what we're gonna do is stick this sucker down here. And you'll see that this doesn't cover, my stencil doesn't cover the whole piece. So I'm gonna ask us to stay away from this bottom part to begin with. And when I stencil these stripes, I tend to put my color on in the direction of the stripe because you don't want it moving side to side. So I'm just going to do it just like that. I will not do the bottom part of this because I'll just go back and hit that when I move the stencil. So just to show you that you can repeat these over a bigger piece of paper if you need to. Oops. If you need to. Don't move your piece of paper, Mitra. Okay. And again, it's light. This is a little, the original one was a little bit variegated. It wasn't, I didn't do it super solidly either. So do it however you want, but mine is not, mine is a little bit. It mostly gets covered by the candles anyway, but. So once I've done that first pass, see, I'm going to move my stencil down and finish it. I will also hold this guy down now because I've stenciled that part already. I'm going to put this down here and you can see, you can just line it up right where the other stenciling that I just did was. Stripes are super easy to do this way. Other patterns, not so much. Some of them are, some of them aren't. Again, don't go this way. Go along the direction of the lines. Lovely. And so now you get a fully striped piece of paper. Okay, let us turn our attention to the candles. I'm going to try and do this as efficiently as I can for the sake of time. But this is going to show you a little tricky thing about how I stencil these shapes. So first one, actually, I'll do the middle, the orange one first, just because I've already got that ink out. All right, so I'm going to hold down my paper just to keep it from moving around. I'm also gonna want to mask off things that I don't want to end up with color on them outside of my line. So that applies to the flame. I don't want to get my pink into my flame, right? I don't care so much about down here because I'm die cutting this. All right, I'm gonna do this one that's the middle candle, which is it's kind of an orangey peach and pink. Okay, I already had the orange out. All right, so just gonna stencil this. And this is gonna be the cool thing in a second. So with these shaped stencils, what you can do, so I've done the orange layer. What I'm gonna do now is do the pink layer using the dotted stencil, right? By sliding the dotted stencil underneath. So what you've got is this shape stencil masking off the area outside so that just the pattern just goes on to the actual candle and not outside the stamped edges of it. So basically, you're just using the shaped stencil that we just stenciled through as a mask now. And the cool thing about that is you can do that with anything, like any of your stencils, you have shapes like that, layer a pattern stencil underneath them, and you can make fun patterns on your shapes. So now you'll see that I have a dotted candle. Pretty darn cool, yeah. All right, I'm gonna move on to the next candle. I'll do all the flames at the same time. So moving on to this candle, and you want to clean, I'm going to clean it in a ridiculous way, but you'll do want to clean between these candles because they're very different colors and they will get a little bit polluted if you don't. So just wipe that off a little bit. Okay, that's down there. Now we're going to do a blue. I just had a blue out, so I'm just going to use this giant blue stencil brush or sponge to do my blue. I do want to try not to get into that candle over there with my giant brush. Again, that's why I kind of like about these little ones is it's easy to put exactly what you want where you want it. Okay. A little bit of a light blue candle base color. And then this one's going to be striped. This one I did in striped in green. So I'm going to slide the striped stencil underneath it. Actually going to catch it and get that tape down as well so it doesn't move around too much. I'm going to center these stripes as best I can on the candle. There we go. And take this is a different color green than I have been using, so I'm going to change that to that green. It's more of a kind of a mint green. And again, same thing, just go in the direction of the stripes. There we go. That one's pretty good. Take that off. All right. I'm gonna go ahead with this class too. I'm gonna go ahead and do the stenciling on the other cards. You can die cut. It's not like you need to be instructed on how to die cut. So I want to show you the different things that we're doing with the stenciling though. Okay. A little bit more pink on my third candle. If I chose a darker pink here than I used originally, it looks like it. Okay. pink background. I'm gonna slide some stars underneath. Pencil them in purple. I don't even have, there's my purple one. Let's change that out too. All right, there's purple. All righty. Perfect. Okay. Yep. Easy peasy. Okay, now just gonna do this real quick with this flame. It's just yellow. Boom. Pick it up. Move it. Make sure you cover up the candle part so you don't get into your other colors. Yellow. And one more. All right, that's all the stenciling for this. Like I said, my time is gonna be over, so. Rest of this card is very, very straightforward to assemble. So you're just gonna die cut these and put them on there. So I'm gonna go ahead and go on to the next card. Okay, the third card, and it's taking like 20 minutes a card for these. So I think what I'm gonna do is lead you through the stenciling of this stuff for this card. And I'm gonna have the video posted that will take an hour, because that's the time slot I have. I'll post a part two, which is putting everything together. All right, so I'm gonna do this one next. So there's a bunch of stamping here. So we're gonna go ahead and get the stamping part over with first. So it's 2 balloons. So 1 balloon, move this card a little bit. 2 balloons. Also, we'll give you a little tip about these. If you're gonna die cut these strings, you will see that sticking them onto the acrylic block, it's really easy to kind of put them in a different shape. That's not going to serve you when you die cut. So in this particular case, you can either die cut first and then stamp on them so you can make sure that you've got your stamp in the right place, which I would do, but I didn't, so I'm not. Or you can let the stamp naturally, it's upside down right now, right? But naturally just fall to the table and pick it up with your block that way. It will be its normal shape. If you do that, you can see that with the you can see that when you lay the stamp set on top of it, that it's actually the right shape. That way it'll die cut correctly. That's my tip in general if you're trying to like do things exact with skinny string like clear stamps. Okay, so the strings are both done. I've got 3 presents, 2 square ones and 1 rectangular one. I shall stamp 2 of them at the same time. Also, make sure you get them on there squarely. Nothing worse than getting your stamps bent out of shape when you have to die cut them. There's that. Whoops. The stamping job I've ever done, but it's okay. Oh, it's this one I need to do twice. Trying to conserve space on my paper. I'm gonna do 3 of the small candle this time. Now, these are the candles and the presents. I actually just colored those in with markers. They're just solid. They don't really need to be stenciled. They could be stenciled. I'm not gonna take time because we have so much trouble, but I just basically did those solid, right? So they could be just colored, or you could take the time. There's the stencils are will work as well, but okay. And the cake. Just the cake left, yes. The cake, for whatever reason, the top part is solid and the bottom part is open. I don't know why that is. But that's also one that is easier to like let it sit on your table in its normal upside down form and then pick it up with the acrylic block, just to make sure you keep the thing square. Okay. I think that's all the stamping. Yeah, that's all the stamping. All right, so I am gonna stencil the balloons. The balloon, it comes in that, the thing we used earlier with the overlapping balloons, but there's also a solid balloon in the stencil set on this sheet. So we're gonna use solid balloon for this. Gonna tape down the card. I'm gonna tape down the stencil so that the strings don't get in our. Everything else has pretty good margins, so I'm gonna do that. These balloons were both done with just yellow, and I just really, it was a light application of the yellow. Let's see how light I can go here. Super light. All right, quick, quick, quick. All right, same thing here. Just pick that up and reposition it on the second balloon. All right, now done that yellow, I'm gonna go ahead and I did this similarly to how I did the dots on the that happy birthday sentiment part on the blue card. In that I did it in a kind of a multicolored way. And do the same thing here. Just gonna put maybe a little bit of orange, maybe a little bit of green, maybe a little bit of pinky. Just really just easy peasy, put a pattern on it, you know. Can take a look at what that looks like and looks fun. Okay, same thing with the other balloon. I'm just going to use the dots instead, so they're slightly different than each other. Same thing. A little bit of green. A little bit of, let's do some blue in here. What have I done with my blues? It's gonna be more blue. Let's see what I can do here. A little bit of blue. A little bit of blue. Oh, nice. A little bit of blue. Perhaps pay a little bit of attention, depending on what kind of ink you use too. You need to pay a little bit of attention as when you're layering colors on top of each other. The hybrid ink is pretty opaque, so the colors hold their own on top of other colors, but they're still transparent enough that that color isn't going to look exactly like it would if you were stamping it on something that wasn't yellow. So those are the 2 balloons I did in die cut up here. Cake, the cake is done in the same way. You'll also see when I open that card up, cake is done the same way, and it's this is, I stamped that onto the base, the cake stand. So just when you go back to assemble it. So I'm gonna do this cake now, the same way we just did this stuff a minute ago with this. And like I said, I did just color these, and I'm not gonna stencil squares and take the time to do that here. So this is what I did here. I die cut that all, and that's on with foam tape. These are all flat. I stenciled this on there. I am gonna stencil the happy birthday though, to show you how I did that. So I really liked the font that this stencil font. Stencil, if you look at stencil writing can be, I don't know, not attractive. And so I was excited to find a font that really, it really was pretty. So I like this one a lot. Trick here is that we're gonna try to get this centered on here. That was not the easiest part of the scarf. All right, so I'm gonna do the happy first, and I'm gonna try to center it in this. Like, you have to kind of imagine visually this going across, because you're trying to sort of center it in that space. So it's gonna be a fair amount off the bottom, but all right. I will tape that down. Or just actually, let me tape. Yeah, let me mask up here. All right, so happy birthday. On the actual stencil is a 2-line sentiment, but I'm not using it as a 2-line sentiment. I'm using it as a 1-line sentiment. So that is why I am demonstrating it to you. I'm using a slightly darker purple ink pad in that same family that I was using. Actually, it's not that family. Maybe this one, actually. Okay. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and save this one for my lighter purple, because if I use a darker on there, it's really going to be dark, and I want this to be slightly lighter on the back. So this is this. And what shall we do here? Make sure that we don't stencil the birthday. So we're going to mask that off as well. Pretty easy peasy. Okay. Better. Don't want to go too hard at it. There's some, pretty fine detail in here. So just pounce on it. Like, kind of what I'm doing is really just pouncing on it till I get the color where I want it. Cool thing about stenciling is you can just go as dark or light as you want. So there's the happy. See how that looks. Pretty good. I can see how it looks here. I'm gonna go a little bit. I don't think I got enough at the bottom of the Y. Ooh, now I got it dark, so I'm gonna go ahead and do the whole thing a little bit darker. Okay, happy done. Pretty dark. We'll match that as we go. Now we're gonna do the birthday. The thing about stencils is you can see where you're going. So you can see to line this up on the same line as the birthday. So you can use the Y as a visual to see that the Y is about 1/4 of an inch from the bottom here. I'm gonna put my other Y similarly. Gonna mask off the birthday. I mean the happy. And also down here, just, it's kind of far, but I also don't want to take chances on getting that in my car. Okay, birthday. Good. Oh, fun. You'll also note that I put an exclamation point on it. I took that from a different sentiment. I took that from the "It's Your Day" sentiment. So just take a second to put that on there. Fills out the space a little bit and centers it just a bit better. Oh, that's cool how flexible the sentiments are really on the stencils. Okay. There you go. Happy birthday centered on the bottom of your card pretty nicely. And then I'm just going to repeat happy all the way up. I will take a second and mask off the birthday. And just keep it that way the whole time so I don't have to mess with it repeatedly. Same thing here. Okay, there we go. So I'm masking off the birthday. And I'm just going to eyeball this happy. Note where you are here that this is about 1/8 of an inch in. I want to go just about really 1/8 of an inch to the top. And you can do that, like you can see it better when you don't have the thing on, the mask on. So I'm just going to try to eyeball that a little bit. And stencil that with a slightly lighter purple than I just used. By the way. Just happy, happy, happy. Fast, fast, fasty. Okay. Boom. Happy. I made that longer, further than the other one. So one thing you can do too here is I think I put 5 of them on before. I think I'm gonna put 4 of them on this now because I've made that so far up. It's okay. Nothing wrong with it. Just making sure I know what I'm doing here so that I can now try to space the other 2 in the same way. Excellent. There you go. So happy, 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 happy. Right, this is by the card. I know everyone knows this already, but these are all cards from the paper cut. This is a side step card. You will note that I've already done my favorite, which is the A2 center stair step card. I've just always used that card. I like it so much. You just fold it like that. You can start, the best way to do it for me is start here and do a mountain fold, then a valley fold, and it just goes into shape at that point. So that's how to fold that. Okay, look at for the second part of this in the Crafters Classroom Facebook page.